quiz 2. So I told you that quiz 2 is to be done today in the evening, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. The quiz will be available. You can attempt the quiz whenever you get time. But the moment you start attempting the quiz, you will be having half an hour only to attempt it, okay? So now we are so happy to tell you that Sri Santosh Mishra ji has joined, who is the speaker today on this session. On behalf of all the academies at IIT Kanpur, IIT Roorkee, MNIT Jaipur, NIT Patna, and IIIT DM Jabalpur, we welcome you, Mishra Sahab, and it is so good to see that now we can hear from a person who has actually used and
recording in progress.
Who has used blockchain technology for governance. With this, I invite Dr. Amey Karkare to please introduce the guest speaker today. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Mishra Sahab, and thank you, Karkare ji.
Thank you, Madam. So it is a great pleasure to have Sri Santosh Mishra ji, IAS, for this session. So he is an IAS now, but he has been a technology person. He has done BTech from IIT Kanpur and is senior to me. And I'm very fortunate that he also stays in Kanpur and he's a neighbor. So since class 12th onwards, I have been hearing his name since we are told that you should follow, emulate someone. So he's one of those persons whom I have emulated. Not just that, Santosh ji, in his bureaucratic role also is quite open to technology, and as he has been at several posts at government of Tamilnadu. So currently he is Commissioner of Transport and in State Transport Authority, but earlier he has been looking at e-governance, so he has been Secretary and Commissioner. He has been CEO of Tamilnadu E-Governance Agency. And in all his roles, he has been adopting technology. In fact, he has been using AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, drone, all the state-of-the-art things, and he has implemented several projects. So rather than me saying all this, I request Santosh to take over the session and describe the applications of blockchain, and many of the participants are interested in knowing the real-life applications. So thank you. So Santosh ji, over to you.
Thank you, Amey, and thank you, Pooja madam. First of all, my apologies. I joined. It took me a few minutes to figure out there was a problem with the Zoom. Also, I apologize for the poor lighting in this room. Unfortunately, I'm traveling and I don't have the usual video conferencing equipment which I use. So please bear with me. I am usually dark in color, so this is just accentuating that. So if you are not able to see me very bright and shining, so please bear with this, because this is the best I could do. I'm sitting in best possible location of this room. As I said, I don't have access to my usual lighting equipment, so bear.
Santoshi, I remember somebody wrote about Ramanujan, a boy with dark complexion and very bright shining eyes.
So of course Ramanujan sir was India is fortunate to have had such luminaries from this country, and he came from such a humble background. Of course, so I'm a piece of dirt in front of him, but I get the point. So you were saying that being dark is sometimes good. So yeah, you go undetected in dark. So all right. So I'm told, and I'm very happy and honored to be part of this program. Amey, thank you very much for inviting, and thank you, Prajita ji. Amey, as he was mentioning, he has been my neighbor and long-time friend. So we go along several decades. We go back to several decades. And program is about 400 or 323 people who are actually signed in and are listening to this and watching this. Fantastic. What I have been told by, the brief I had been given was that there is a lot of theory which has come in, and people have been talking about various flavors of blockchain, Hyperledger Fabric, probably Corda, maybe Ethereum, Bitcoin, whatever. And there has been relatively less discussion on the practical implementation of it and usage of blockchain in real life. So is my understanding correct? And I would encourage the participants, sorry, Rajita, I'll take another 15 seconds.
So
I really encourage the participants to speak up. Let me open the chat window if I can, and type your questions on. There is a chat window. Type your questions. Somebody said, Neeraj, thank you so much for saying, responding to my question. Vikas Singh, you have raised your hand. So if you have any question, kindly do type it in the chat box. That will be so I will really encourage questions, comments in the chat box. I'm having it in front of me. I'm seeing your comments. Try it into my 90 minutes which I have with you. If I know, I'll try to give it. If I don't know, I'll try it and to you. Sorry, Rajita, you were saying something and I cut you.
So for this session, we have made, because we wanted to make it very interactive. So we have requested participants to raise their hands. I will ask them to unmute themselves. Because if I unmute all at a time, it becomes chaotic. Secondly, we have done with the theoretical aspects, implementation as well. But use cases are going to be covered tomorrow by Dr. Mani Madhukar from IBM and today by you. So this is the first session on some use cases and where things have been really applied or can be applied.
Fantastic.
So Vikas has,
I'm so happy to see a lot of comments coming. Ashank Agrawal has asked me, is NBP only current blockchain implementation in the government side? Is this considered an option for ready use? I would highly encourage to type in this chat box, because then it doesn't disturb the flow and nobody needs to interfere. You don't sort of, disrupt the flow and the issues linked with allowing of other microphones. Neeraj Garg has typed, the organizing team has done their best to give us a good starting position. We are looking forward to your task to cover the use cases in government. So we will try to do this thing. I will also, now, can somebody also give me a feedback if you would be interested in knowing what's happening around the world as well. So there are few cases which I can also talk about. So is that something of your interest? Deepti says yes. Anybody else? Do you think bringing some international use cases be useful? Excellent. So I get 3, 4, 5 responses. Deepti, the first part of your comment has gone off the screen. So you may have a lot of messages. So I will cover some international cases and then I will focus on something which is happening in the country. And then I'll also talk about what we were doing or trying to do in Tamilnadu when I was in my previous avatar, when I was in coming of e-government. That is the time of this NM project, and I'll give you some more details. I'll ask you as we go along, and then try to give you a flavor of trying to do and what is our entire blockchain project. So this seems like this thing. I will try to do my best to answer those questions. Again, the present for you. Gulam wants me about AI plus IoT. Rose and Imani and others have also expressed their desire to know about use cases around the world. So I hope the screen is visible to everyone. Okay, now my chat window has vanished. Let me get it back.
Yes, sir, it is visible. Yes.
This will
Fantastic.
come, definitely. You can see the moment somebody puts a chat. So
Okay.
you can make it full slide and the chat window will be showing you. That's
Yeah.
possible. Yeah.
So let me do that. Okay. I have the chat window in front. So that works well. Okay. So all set, and let's dive right into it. I am not going to talk about what is blockchain. I will probably start from the second point: blockchain in e-governance, blockchain around the world, and blockchain initiatives in India, and blockchain in Tamil Nadu will be key focus of my presentation today. Okay, somebody is talking about insurance claiming in healthcare. So certainly that can happen, and I'll give you some more example on the insurance part as well. Somebody said, I want to, Nilima says that she wants to work on IoT and there is a scalability issue. So of course, scalability in blockchains has been a very well-known problem, and a lot of new solutions are happening, sort of being developed. Thankfully, some of them are from this country itself. So that should be scalability in blockchain is going to be resolved one way or the other. There are a lot of layer 2 solutions. Maybe if time permits, we will talk about it. Polygon, you must have heard of. Lightning is on the Bitcoin, and there are a lot of other scalability issues like Near is there, and then Near protocol is there, and there was another one I was reading about. So scalability is getting resolved as we speak. A lot of people are working on it, and I think in fact there is a prediction which says that now one of the limiting factors of Ethereum-based public blockchains is the gas fee is just too high at times to do transactions. So if you're building an application or a dApp on Ethereum, you run into this issue of gas prices, and then you have an issue. You have a solid problem. In fact, there is a company in India which is working on an India-oriented solution, which will be which is called Hi-Fi, and HYF. Let me just type it so you can check it out, the details on this, and that's quite promising platform on scalability. It's called Hi-Fi. It's done by a person I know, and it's interesting. Then there was a question on India government blockchain, which has been done. So of course, I'm going to cover that. How we can as private player work or use such data. Okay. I think I will talk about it when I talk about Tamil Nadu experience, Ashutosh. And deep learning projects in blockchain, RD has mentioned. I'm not sure if there are. So one thing we need to understand that blockchains are not meant for data storage. So anything which requires a lot of data storage on chain, that's a no. So I don't know if that is what your question is. But interestingly enough, AI has a certain application which can be done on blockchain, and I will talk about it. In fact, there's AI is one of the good use cases blockchain. So if you are interested, RD, please do remind me sometime during the session. So I will tell you something about how blockchain can help AI as well. And there is a whole ethical aspect of AI which is being very hotly debated, and I think that's something which blockchain can actually help solve. So that's something. RD, please do remind. Ashok Agrawal has said that I read somewhere that Aadhaar is built on blockchain. No, not really. I have I know Aadhaar, and I was the state registrar for Aadhaar, so it's certainly not built on blockchain. So it's not been integrated with the blockchain as of now. Okay. So going ahead, as I said, please keep typing in as questions occur to you, I'll try to answer them as we go. Okay, let me continue with the presentation. So as I said, what is blockchain? I'm skipping. I'm hoping all of you would know this. If you really need me to go over that to summarize, please type in your in the chat responses. Otherwise, I'm going to skip. Okay, blockchain and e-governance. Just a sec, let me just readjust my window. Causing a bit of all right. So, as you would have seen, as other speakers and during the course, you would have. Oh, somebody said that please summarize blockchain. So, Ayush, I'll take maybe 2 minutes and just 3 minutes, and Ankur also wants it to give you a summary. Okay, so here it is. This is a very, I mean, this is like as compacted information on blockchain as possible. So blockchain is basically, if you remember, it's made up of two words, block and chain. When we say block, it means block of information. So you take a bunch of information, which can be a file or whatever, put it in a block and form a chain out of it. And the whole power of blockchain lies in the way the chain is formed. And chain is formed using what is called hash function. And these hash functions are basically some sort of like we humans have, fingerprints. So they are in some sense fingerprint of a particular information. So that information can be a number, it can be a word, it can be a sentence. Each sentence has its own unique fingerprint. Each word has its own unique fingerprint. Each number has its own unique fingerprint. It can be a paragraph. Each paragraph has its own unique fingerprint. It can be a page of a book. Each page has a unique fingerprint, or it can be the whole book that has a unique fingerprint, or it can be the whole library that has a unique fingerprint, or it could be a movie which will have a unique fingerprint, or it could be a photograph which will have a unique fingerprint. So you might have heard of things called NFT, non-fungible tokens, and even though today we are not going to talk about non-fungible tokens, but that's essentially, it comes into existence when you are able to take a fingerprint of a digital asset. So it could be a music file, it could be a voice file, it could be a digital art, it could be a photograph, it could be a movie, it could be any other document. So what you do is you take a block of information, take a fingerprint of it, connect it to the next block, and when you connect it, you club the fingerprint of two blocks. And then you use that fingerprint as the block header. So you put it on top of the block of information. So every block is linked to the previous block in a way where fingerprint of information of every block is a function of fingerprints of all the previous blocks. So that's how a blockchain is. So if you take out a bit of information from between the blocks, or if you remove one block out of a chain of say 5 million blocks, the whole fingerprint system will collapse, because each fingerprint is a sum of the fingerprints of the previous fingerprint. So I don't know if you understood it. If you have, please just respond to me saying yes, or if you haven't, I'll just quickly repeat what I said. Ayush, can you do that? Neeraj said yes. Okay, got it. Fine. And then of course there are two types of blockchain. So one is permission blockchain and one is permissionless. Permissionless is essentially where everybody can view, can download, so can access and can actually transact, and that's called permissionless. Then you have permission blockchains where not everybody has access to transact. So transaction access is limited. Hyperledger Fabric is a classic example of permission blockchain. Permissionless blockchain is typically your Ethereum or Bitcoin, and you have like 8,000 of them now, 6,000 I think altcoins. So all of them are permissionless blockchains. So it gives, this is a summary of the blockchain, a distributed, immutable chain of records. It's distributed because everybody is authorized to have a copy. Anybody can participate if it's particularly if it is a permissionless system. Any node, and node is essentially a computer. So you can choose to become a node. All of you can become node of Bitcoin or Ethereum, or if you have a strong enough computer, you can actually and good enough internet connection, you can become a node. So every node has a copy of records, and anytime, as I said, since each block of information is linked, it has its header, it has a summary of all the previous blocks or a fingerprint of all the previous blocks. If you change one block, everything crashes and you cannot change it, and that's why it's called immutable chain. And it's a method to own and transfer assets. So there was blockchain 1.0, which was essentially Bitcoin, and then you have blockchain 2.0, which is Ethereum. So the difference between Ethereum and Bitcoin was that Bitcoin did not support smart contracts. Ethereum has smart contracts. Incidentally, smart contracts neither are smart nor they are contracts. They're just a bunch of piece of code written in some language. Probably Solidity is the most popular, and it executes on a certain condition being met. Somebody asked about insurance, and I'll talk about that when we come to that. Of course, because it is immutable, so nobody can go and change anything, and that brings the trust. Chotu has asked, sir, my question is, any blockchain technology for we shall create an application, then blockchain technology we shall use blockchain. I'm not sure what you are asking, whether we should select blockchain technology first or we should select an application first. So actually it happens simultaneously. If you have, it depends on the need of your application. So for example, if as a government I want to build a blockchain network where my departments would have, they will be putting out data and bringing out certain digital asset onto that, probably I will look at permission system. So where people will be able to view the information, but they will not be able to issue information on that block. So similarly, if you are building an altcoin, okay. So Anant is saying that please take the questions at the end. It's disturbing the flow. So I think that's a good suggestion. So I'll kindly hold your questions for now. If you get a question, I think Anant, thank you for this suggestion. If you get the question, please write it down, keep it with you. As we go along, after 2, 3, 5 slides, I will ask you any questions, and that time I will take up all the questions and answer. Thank you, Anand, for this info. So that's a brief on blockchain, and let's look at what happens in blockchain in e-governance. As I said, the attraction for a government or for any organization for that in blockchain is that because see what happens today is that you are dependent on so many agencies for so many things, and not two agencies don't trust each other, and that's the biggest challenge of e-governance, and blockchain is the best solution for that. So for example, if you need a travel authorization, right? Who issues that? Any response? Travel authorization. If I need a travel authorization, who will issue that? So that's your travel related documents are two documents are travel related. One is of course your passport, which is issued by Ministry of External Affairs. The second is driving license. Somebody said RTO. Absolutely right. Second is driving license. That's also a travel related need. Both are issued. One is issued by RTO, which is controlled by state government. One is issued by Ministry of External Affairs, controlled by Government of India. If you want to, education related documents, they are issued by, again, if you are studying in a central university, IIT Kanpur, it is issued by IIT Kanpur, which is an autonomous institution. If it is a technical college in Uttar Pradesh, then it is UPTU, probably UP Technical University, which issues that. If you are in any other state, your Maharashtra state or Tamilnadu state or Gujarat state, your appropriate university will issue. So that university is issuing that document. If you are wanting to have electricity related authority, so what happens is each individual has multiple roles or multiple needs or multiple avatars, if you will. So when you are driving, you are a driver and you need an authorization for from RTO. When you are traveling abroad, you need you are an international passenger and you are no longer a driver and you are traveling on an authorization issued by Ministry of External Affairs. When you are applying for a job, you are neither a driver nor an international traveler, but a person with education credential issued by one of the universities, and you are using that credential to apply or access a service which says this job is open for all bachelors of technologies, or this job is open for all BA in history, or this job is open for all BA in economics. So you use that credential to prove that you are actually eligible. You are eligible to drive. You are eligible to travel. You are eligible to apply for a job. You are eligible for age proof. You are eligible for old age pension. So all that is issued by different government agencies. And that's the challenge of government agencies. Not necessarily all government agencies work on the same platform. In fact, none of them work on the same platform. And if you talk about agencies across the state, they definitely don't work on the same platform. So we would have developed a system on our own. Karnataka would have developed on their own. I would be using Java. They would be using Angular Java. I would be using Oracle database. They might be using MySQL. The whole system is very different. Of course, I use Tamil. They use Kannada. Odisha guys will be using Odia. Hindi. UP will be using Hindi. So the language, the technology, the platform. Chotu has said, please example by example explain. So I'll try to, that's what I'm trying to do. So every government, so within a state, all the government agencies are not on the same platform. Across the states, they definitely are not on the same platform. And if you talk about the country as a whole, none of the government technology platforms are identical. So now the question is, how do you make them? So if I want a passport, I need to give proof of address. How do I give a proof of address? I give my driving license. Now, as I said, driving license is issued by some other authority. In passport, they ask whether you are, what is that ECR, immigration check required or not. If you are 10th pass or something, you don't require immigration check. If you are not a 10th pass, then you have to have that. So how do you bring that credential for this? That you go to the university or the school you have studied and get a certificate and put it there. Now, this is where the inefficiency and the cumbersome delays. I mean, we all curse government saying that they take so much time, but please understand how complex these systems are. So, how do these different agencies, which require input from everyone? So if you are giving, for example, the government said all landless farmers will be protected during COVID and they will be given a particular amount of wages for making their families, give them a family support for surviving during COVID. So how do you decide who are the landless laborers? You go and access revenue department's database and say that, oh, these are the people who have land, and this is the people who don't have land. I mean, so you take maybe census data, or you maybe take your family survey data, and then you filter out all those people who have land holdings, and then say this is the residual which is left. For them, we are going to provide support. So each department, each government scheme requires accessing data from multiple agencies. They require authentic access, authentic data. They need data which is verifiable. They need data which is immutable, which is not tampered with. In fact, when this Kisan scheme came, where Kisan farmers were given the 6,000 rupees a year as a support, a lot of fake farmers cropped up, and almost in one of the states, almost money to the tune of about 200 crores was siphoned off by collusion of lower level staff with people. They did that, and the reason is because The farmer database is different, maintained by a different guy. Person who's distributing this benefit is a different agency, and they have to take a copy of data in CD and put it there. And anybody can manipulate data on CD, right? Data can be edited. And that's where the application of blockchain in e-governance comes. Madhukar has asked a very good question. ATM of bank machines work for all banks. They do not use blockchain. How they work very efficiently, and even if they are centralized. So this is a very important question, and that's in fact the first slide. Usually in my sessions on blockchain is, in fact, there are two slides which says, do you need a blockchain solution? If you need a blockchain solution, then only you should take a blockchain solution. If you don't need a blockchain solution, there are things which you can do with databases. You don't need blockchain for that. But there are things which you cannot do with databases. I mean, we all know, if you just do, those of you who have computers, just search on academic degree frauds which have happened in this country. Fake degrees. There is a racket, whole racket. There are every state has these black sheep, and you can pay X amount of money and you can get whatever degree you want. And surprisingly enough, in one of the states we found that they have slots available. So you want a 2009 degree, there is a serial number intentionally left vacant in 2009 series of degrees. So you want 2016 degree. So there are again a bunch of serial numbers which are vacant, which can be filled up later depending on. So for example, 2009 degree is very difficult to check, right? If somebody says that I have done PhD from X university in 2009, and he was my guide, the guide would have retired, the person would have retired, the college may exist, may not exist. So 2000, say degree of 2000 or 2001, it becomes, so there is a huge racket of academic. Now, if you are an employer, if you are, and in fact, I was talking to some of the people from US Embassy, and one of our very major problems is how do we verify the academic credentials. Many of the times we come across in Andhra Pradesh, I don't know if you have been following this news, in US, they actually sent home some 200 or 300 students, or even more, I think, from saying that all their degrees are fake. So how do you, so you're right, you don't need to replace every centralized database with blockchain, but where there is a problem, blockchain is the solution. And first thing in blockchain, remember, is to ask you, in fact, there is a very neat slide, and I don't know, maybe at the end of the session, if I can dig it out, I'll send it to you. There's a nice flow chart, whether you need a blockchain or not. So it asks you a series of questions, and then if you are answering yes and no to each, it will finally tell you whether you need a blockchain. In fact, you can dig it out yourself. It was on the WEF, World Economic Forum website, and I think it's a very sane flow chart. You must, all of us must use that before we implement blockchain. All right, so I was telling you about this blockchain in governance, and as I said, there are multiple stakeholders, and when you have an issue of trust, you have possibility of manipulation. There you bring in this, and of course you bring in, again, popular notion of blockchain is that it's very expensive solution. It's a very slow solution. It consumes a lot of energy. So it all depends on, none of it, all of it could be true, and none of it could be true depending on what flavor and what implementation mechanism you adopt. It's a permissioned network. You don't have consensus. You don't have proof of work. You don't have to worry about energy consumption, etc. Again, if it's a permission network, then you don't have to worry about transaction rate. Generally, they are very fast considering the amount of volume you are going to create. So these are the reasons why potentially governments and even private organizations are looking at blockchain. So tomorrow, if you are going to hear from IBM, IBM had brought out a very nice can blockchain replace government? I'll talk about it. IBM, if you have a session tomorrow, please do ask him, and I'm sure he might be presenting, or she might be presenting this trade lens solution, which IBM and Maersk. Maersk is a shipping company. You must have seen those large containers with Maersk written on them. So they brought out a solution called Trade Lens, which was for trade financing. And trade financing is an absolutely apt case for blockchain solution. And as I said, there are solutions where data sharing between departments is there. You definitely need blockchain solution. So again, lot of government jobs, central governments, are given based on community certificate or caste certificate issued by states. And I have seen cases pending for 15 years, 20 years for verification. And there is no system. In fact, if you could bring out this blockchain-enabled system, verification will become a breeze. Any government employer can actually immediately verify your credentials in no time. I used to, as a district collector, we used to, one of our requests, one of our major workloads was, particularly if you are a district collector of a large district, is thousands of people get jobs in paramilitary forces, in army, in navy, wherever, in defense establishments, in Baba Atomic Research Center, in other central government railways, you name it. And then their credentials come back saying that please verify whether it has been genuinely issued by the following Tahsildar of this thing. It would have been issued back some 10 years, 8 years, 12 years ago, and the Tahsildar has to go through and physically find out and then give a certificate. No, it is issued, it is valid. So those issues can be sorted out if you have a smart implementation of blockchain. Of course, all these interoperability, reconciliation, provenance, all those are advantages of blockchain. So with that, let us move to the next section, which is let's see what's happening on blockchains around the world. And then, as I said, third part, I will talk about blockchain in India. And then we'll leave about 15-20 minutes for question answers as well. So this is from Europe. I don't know if you have heard of it. There was in 2018, 21 members, and now I'm told it is 27, joined what is called European Blockchain Partnership. And they came together to create what was called European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. So, in fact, it's very interesting. In Tamilnadu, what we were trying to build, it was called Nambike Inayam. And in Nambike Inayam means a link of trust or a chain of trust. And that it is basically an enlarged version of it because it's cross-country. Ours was limited to